All right, hello and welcome. Sorry about that, guys. We're going to get going right now. My name is Greg Henniger, community manager here, and joining me is...
I'm John Roy. I'm an environment artist working on H1Z1.
Awesome, perfect. So last time we had Clegg on, and he was showing you how he was placing, houses, and we were creating a neighborhood and that side of the level design. And today we're more focusing on the environment, the hills, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. How we start with the initial map of the whole world, sculpting that before we have any world building or design. I first have to make sure that there's something to build on.
Right.
So that's what we're going to do.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
So whenever you're ready, I'll kick it over to the computer. And if you guys have any questions specifically about creating terrains and just the world of H1Z1, feel free to leave those in the chat, and I will kick those over to John, and hopefully he can answer for you. So here we go. Let's turn this down just a bit.
All right. So the first thing I want to show you is where we actually start. So we come up with, obviously, we go through a design process. We know what kind of game we want to make. We want to know the kind of gameplay mechanics, the size of the world. All those kind of things are talked about at length. And then we start collecting reference. We start collecting, real world photographs and things like that I want to show you.
Okay.
So, hang tight here. A typical reference, obviously, something like that. That you can tell we've looked at this a little H1Z1 looking maybe.
Yeah. I've seen those hills before.
Yeah, somewhere from the Northwest, and we've looked at Middle America and all sorts of other places. But that's the kind of thing that we look at. Like we want that kind of look, okay? Right. That kind of collection or combination of trees and stuff like that. From there, we start designing out. How is our world set up? Now this is more of an initial little. Actually, this is quite old. Whoops! What happened there? That was weird. Oh, that's because I'm not going into Photoshop. So we'll lay out some different areas, things like that. Actually, this is a very, very old map. I didn't have a chance to bring in the latest and greatest.
That's all right.
But you get the idea. We blanket out certain places and where do we want commercial or ranch or farm or town and things like that.
Sure.
So
for those of you who were here last week, this is the same terrain editor that Clegg was using to place things. Is that correct?
That is true.
Okay, cool.
Right.
So you'll be a little familiar with that if you were here last week.
Yeah.
So what are we seeing here?
So what I have here is we have a really great concept artist. He's doing a lot of environment work with me. His name's Roel. And Roel did some of our concept work, and this was one of the main towns, and you could see there's the hydro dam and some places that hopefully are going to become familiar to you. So we were deciding where we wanted to place things, what the feel of the town would be like, things like that. So this is part of the next step after we go through design and make decisions on the basics at kind of a broader level.
Okay.
Start honing in. So now we have imagery based on stuff from the real world or not, or whatever style we want to dictate, and start using those as our reference points.
Okay.
Yeah. So just wanted to go along a little bit more. Before I get into the terrain editor specifically, I wanted to show you this. So this is just a small little snippet of real imagery from a place in the United States. Doesn't matter really where it is, but what it is geological survey DEM data or a real height field, and you can see some of the the rivers and things like that we have.
Sure.
Some mountains. A lot of interesting features, and it was one of the things I used to experiment how I wanted to try and make terrain. We usually use a tool, and we use some fractals and some other more procedural things to create a height field, and then we mold it and sculpt it from there. But this time around on H1Z1, I wanted to see if I could really get, more of a specific kind of hill, a little bit perhaps more realistic looking topography, and it was one of the experiments I tried on there. But I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to show for people that may not be familiar with that.
Yeah, definitely. These kind of reference points that you guys go off of, because last week Adam was showing so he would look down on a residential area in Google Maps, and that would give him, a really good idea of just how towns are laid out, and
Right.
so he would kind of build off of that. So this is the nature's version of, of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And it's also really nice. I like to study the stuff. Even as a kid, I was really big into maps and stuff, and geography, and just how trains are made. I'm one of the guys that always has to have a window seat on the airplane. Go over to the desert and like, wow, look at how that erosion flows.
Right.
It's just kind of my thing. So from there, like I said, then we're working on some tools that generate some maps, and through a whole series of different things. We've used a lot of different little tools, but mainly they are a group of applications that let us use Perlin noise or certain kinds of fractals. You might be used to seeing it from like Bryce 3D or things like that, but we're using some other ones too, and we create these large patterns over kilometers and kilometers of a world, and that gives us different mountains. We can kind of move where we want major mountain features, kind of add a little bit, but it just gives us a big broad brush approach.
Sure.
And so we start with that, and then let me get back into Photoshop and pop this guy in here. It's kind of a large file. So this, and you can kind of see it a little bit. Let me level it up. There's a lot of data in this. This is actually a 16-bit height field TIFF file, and you can see there's a lot of extra data in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, so it's 16-bit. It's not a normal 8-bit RGB type of image, but this is an initial look at of what our elevation looks like if white was on top and black was the very lowest. I mean, white is the highest elevation is what I meant to say.
Sure.
And you can see how that just builds elevation on a height field.
Right.
And that's what that is. It's pulling up only on one axis. All these little, if you imagine a huge net or mesh, as our viewers know from games, it's all triangles, and you're just pulling up on one axis and getting that terrain mesh through this image to behave that way, and that's how we get our topography. So yeah.
All right. Let's
then,
see if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, I'll
Oh no, yeah.
give it a pause there.
Keep going. I'm
Okay.
gonna look for some questions.
All right. So from there, that's where I finally enter the terrain editor once I get the height field just the way I want it. And then if I could dare to just make our bubble a little bigger in the terrain editor here, see how much horsepower this machine has.
This is a look behind the scenes, guys. So sometimes it may get a little hectic, but that's game development for you, right?
Oh yeah, it's we're always experimenting, we're always iterating. It's interesting. It's not giving me a very big view of the world. That's not quite what I was hoping for, but so let me see here. One thing I can do is not that. Yeah, we kind of came in here and got this thing set up, and it wasn't. I'm not sure why this isn't set up. Press.
Okay, yeah. If you guys have any questions specifically about this, we're not really gonna be talking, early access and that kind of stuff on the stream. This is a work in progress stream, so we're just giving you a behind-the-scenes look at what the game devs do on a day-to-day basis.
So what I was going to do is kind of at least try and show as much of the map as possible, but the performance on this box isn't like the one I work on, or something isn't quite reacting as I expected. But I come in and import a huge height field map, like I said, this TIFF file, it molds the whole world at once, and that gives us that start. And it's from there where I begin to lay down what we call ecosystems, or basically they're different types of land coverage. So they're grassland, dirt, forest leaves to rock, snow, let's say, those kind of things. We just, for some reason way back when, decided to call those ecosystems, and that's where we start creating texture maps that then we can tile across the world where we want them to go. And I use the height field as a way to kind of mask which areas I want to be grass. I want these little crevices like right up here. I want that to be dirt or leaves where there's a forest.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
All right, so we got a question from Kestrus. How does the team go about smoothing roads and paths? Is it done manually with a brush, or do you use prefabs for something like that?
So the best way to answer that is when we do small little dirt roads, we do some hand painting and kind of give it that type of look. Then we have some prefab road pieces and some functionality, and we lay down the main roads that way. Okay. So it's kind of it's a little bit of both.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can answer this one for you. KB Singer, what will the boundaries of the map be like? An invisible wall, oceans, mountains? Is that something we can talk about, or probably a little too early for that?
I would say that we have some mechanisms we're going to put in place where you're not going to really get to the absolute edge, of course. That doesn't really look that good.
Yeah.
Just see this void of nothingness, right? So I can tell you that much without giving away a whole much more. That's basically it. It's not a matter of whether it's a continent or not, or if it's landlocked or not.
Right. It's not going to be like the Truman Show where he just comes to the edge of the water.
Right.
At the
Exactly.
End
it's like,
and it's just a wall. Yeah.
Yeah. No mimes.
Okay.
No. All right.
Let's see. That's a similar question. Goaty73. Good question, though.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see if I could show you a little bit more of... here we go. This looks promising in a way. It means it's thinking, so...
Oh, good.
Let's hope.
All right, let's grab another question then. Which area of the world are you using to model the map, or are you making your own world? And we'll kick it back over to the main camera. When the computer comes back up, we'll go back to it.
Yeah, let's hope it's on its way back here. It's
chugging along. It's chugging along today.
Chugging.
Yeah.
Yes. So while it's chugging, we're going to do some chatting. So it's really a custom world. Like I was saying, as reference and as some parts of the way we built the world, I did look at other geological survey maps and tried a few pieces and chunks and things like that. But altogether, it was one world just based on customized map. Some hand brushing, some fractals, combination of all three. I don't like to really get locked into just one type of method. So here's what I was trying to do. Now you can kind of see a lot more without...
Okay, yeah, that gives you a much better idea.
Yeah, so the height field was actually, it's giving me some erosion, and I used that erosion. I was able to single it out with some of the tools we have to create where I wanted the texture maps and things like that. I also use it for kind of a cavity AO map, create a little bit of kind of a lighting or shading kind of light map effect, so to speak. Okay. And I'll be doing that later on. This map actually doesn't have that yet, but work in progress.
So these bits right here, I guess you could put the mouse right over that.
Let's cruise over there.
Is that... So the elevation went up, obviously. So you have kind of the rocks along the side of the hill. Is that procedurally generated, or did you go in and place that because you knew the elevation was going up, so you wanted kind of a rock face?
So what we did there is I was able to single out this area as a slope and said on the slopes I want to have the rock. Now this area is actually kind of rough. It's an area that we'll come back and be touching up. But that's how we did this particular piece is I masked for slope. You can see right in here as well, and the rock went on that area.
Okay.
A real kind of rough pass on it right now,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what we're doing. Let me try and see if I could cruise to a mountain, because that has a really nice separation on it.
So, Frosty Gambit, if you're doing this right now, does that mean we can feel confident that the map is constantly expanding? So there are borders, correct?
Yes.
So yeah, it's not like what was that game? Tribes, like the original Tribes.
Where it
you
just went on and on. Tribes 2.
fly, yeah, you just fly out.
I remember
forever.
doing that. I was playing the game. I'm like, I just want to see where it ends.
Yeah.
I just kept going. It wasn't even
never
playing.
ended.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, there are borders to this map.
Yeah, but that does not mean that we have plans in the future to expand and do. Of course, we will.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that there's some finite end to the way this works.
Right.
Just because this map has some kind of fixed border, but yeah, we always have plans to do bigger and better things.
Cool.
Yeah. So here's maybe a little better example of what I was talking about, where I was able to mask out using cavity, erosion, and get the rocks right where I want them to be.
Oh, sure.
Some dirt wash, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can see down in here, and then we have a little POI that was made. So this is once we get all the pieces set up, we have designers building that comes in here, and I'll come in here and do some little POIs along with them, and we kind of
And POI is a point of interest. Okay.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have been asking about things like that. Like, will there be areas of the map that you can kind of point to and say, like, I know, the mall, the strip mall's over there. I know the water tower's over there. Those kind of points of interest that you can kind of orientate yourself when you're on a map this large.
Yeah. In fact, that is. I just got done doing something like that. On one of the mountains, I put a radio tower because it was a fairly centralized mountain, and I wanted to make sure that, okay, people can orient themselves and look at that and go, okay, that's the middle of the map, no matter what, things like that.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
we are definitely thinking that way. Roads, navigation, these power lines, I'll give you a little hint right here. These will be handy for you.
Right.
So you can follow those up and down if you come across them. Things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And the river,
All right. Let's see.
Here,
Looking for some more questions here.
I'll play with some tools here while you're...
Yeah, there was one question. Can you show us how to make a hill?
That is so funny. I was just going to do that.
Really? I've been using Unity, and when I make one, it just becomes a jumbled mess, and that comes from Epic Penguin.
Epic Penguin, I feel for you. I do a lot of this kind of more baked, fractal procedural or, DEM kind of stuff, but I actually like painting and building hills, but it's never as good as, something where you've run a huge erosion algorithm over it for an hour and it really, looks like it's been there for, the million years it is, and that kind of thing. So it is a little tricky, but let me show you what I do. So you see all these different little maps. Some of these are older from Planetside. In fact, a lot of them are from there. But there's some real nice hills and things like that you can... let's see what this one is. This one looks fairly interesting. So you see that little square? It's a bitmap. That's pretty small. It's only 1 meter. So I'm going to change these a little bit. That's a little big, maybe. So it's going to be kind of a real sharp mountain in a real small space, but boom, here it comes. So it's, let me give it a little more.
Is it true
but
that
this is one way we do it, and we can rotate this brush and do things like that with it. So that's a little too much.
Cool.
Yeah, but you get the idea. What I would do, so let me come in the middle here. Is something like that. Okay, and then what I would do is take out one of my tools and start kind of painting with it. We have a smooth brush, we have up and down, averaging, and all sorts of different little pieces and tools that we work with here. My hotkeys aren't set up, so now I have to actually like look for them.
What?
We actually have a hill brush. This is what I avoid doing, is going like this. I call those sugar lumps, camelback. Got all sorts of names for them, and
they just look unnatural.
Yeah, it's just ugly. There's no form or thing to them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually kind of has a lumpiness to it as well. You know, you can see it's clearly not, you know, as interesting with all these little fissures and you know, little outcrops.
Right.
But you know, if we have to make a small hill and we just can't go backwards into the height field, we do that. So yeah.
When you make a hill like that, when you place it, say you placed it over the top of that that tower, will that lift the tower up to the top of the hill, or is that something you have to go through and manually adjust after putting in something like that?
So we can set all our objects up so they can either follow or not follow terrain, and that's how we do that. So for the most part, we you know, we set it up at a per object basis. I don't know if you can see there, but I can actually pull down parts of this hill, and you know, I would do things like that to create a little more interest. This computer's a little slower than I'm used to, but you get the idea. You know, I come in here and do some erosion.
Right.
Kind of actually. Sorry, let me get my left-handedness working the right way. Yeah, I'm one of them.
You're one of them.
I remember that from the 12-hour stream. They're like, "Oh, he's a lefty, kill him." That's what someone said.
You do a lot of cross.
Only on other people's computer.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you get that idea. But here's kind of a fun little trick if I can get standing on the terrain to work. I'm not sure why it's probably because I don't have those prefs set up the right way. But you can actually paint on the terrain, and the camera will rise up below you and pick you up like an elevator. But I just have to set up all the prefs in here the right way.
Okay.
But it's kind of fun.
Wolf and Punk, question is, how tall is the tallest mountain?
How tall is the tallest mountain? Just trying to think if that's giveaway info or not.
How tall is that tallest mountain that we can see right here?
Well, this tallest mountain, this is one of the ones that is fairly tall. I'd say we're talking only about, you know, maybe it's around 400 meters, so some maybe up to 6. That's rather high. Because the terrain or the height field gets lofted, you know, just on the y-axis or just vertically like that, it has kind of an exponential effect. So I can't just type in, I want 1 kilometer as the peak. It really is kind of, you know, does it look right? Is it too pointy that way?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's not a matter of just numerically throwing a number in, it's whether the art looks good. So, yeah.
All right, let's see. Get some more questions here. That's more of a gameplay question.
Well, if it's straightforward, I might be able to field it. But
okay,
yeah.
you want
to give me a try. Yeah.
Brian's Legend says, will terrain react to weather, such as driving a car in the rain and having it slide?
Well, I can say this about things like weather and rain is there is some weather that's already in the game that makes the terrain look different, or maybe perhaps wet when it's raining.
Yep.
Where there's some weather. So we are looking into doing more of that type of thing, but we do have some you know, things that are affected by weather.
Okay.
So yeah, I was able to sort of, you know.
You worked your way around that one.
Yeah.
I liked it. All right, let's see.
Yeah, let me see what else I can show here. We got there's a little ramp tool that's kind of cool. Say I want a driveway in the middle of this mountain.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah.
So just little things like that. And if you come in here, you can see the actual wireframe. You know. So it's pretty nifty. This might be an interesting point. We actually optimized this terrain, but it's a uniform height grid at the moment. But we do some other things to it once we bring it into the game. But just so you kind of see what I'm working with.
All right, there's a lot of people asking about underground areas.
Underground.
I don't know how much we can talk about that.
We always have plans to be able, like I said, expand the map.
Mm-hmm.
Things like underground areas are always been a big part of our games.
Sure.
We're looking into it, and that's about really all I can go with for right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All right.
I love caves.
There you go.
I spent a lot of years on EverQuest and made my fair share of caves, so definitely have that.
Yeah.
Interest.
What was your path up to H1Z1? So you were on
how far back should I
EverQuest?
go?
Points of interest, POIs.
Yeah, let's see, POIs. Okay, I started in the industry way back. Let's say I made a C64 game once.
Okay.
And I did the audio for it as well. It's kind of
Mhm.
weird, but yeah, just moving on forward through that, consoles, that type of thing. Came to SOE. I made a sports game, and then worked on Star Wars Galaxies for
okay.
5.5 years.
Big fan of Star Wars Galaxies.
I still love the game. Love the fans that, it was kind of a tough game to make. It was actually it had a lot of really cool tech and technology. In fact, the Train editor was pretty neat.
Yeah.
I worked with a great programmer that designed that, and I kind of worked along with him. So moving from Swig, I was waiting for some new projects to start up, things like that, and so went over and helped the original EverQuest 1.
Okay.
And helped as an art director on that team. It was a little bit after the NGE, or the new graphics engine, started, and so I was working with the team on making more worlds or expansions based on that new technology, and ended up staying there about, I think it was like 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Wow.
So I was pretty excited to to move on when
Sure.
PlanetSide started to need some more resources. I'm just like, oh. Yeah. So I was at a meeting once and saw where it was going, and I said, I got to get on that. And I've always wanted to make a shooter, so it's
Nice.
a dream come true for me. So that was
Very
fun.
cool. Let's see. So here's a question that pertains to that. Willie Wiggins, do you think that the terrain will be more climbable than it is in PlanetSide? Or maybe is that a question you can answer?
I'm not sure if that's going to change a whole lot or not. I actually don't have enough information, and we haven't finalized some of the slope and vehicular kind of angle.
All right. Well, good question
stuff.
then, Willie.
Yeah,
Wiggins.
that's something
You
that
cut
we're
right
still.
to the core.
Yeah, we're still polishing, or making sure it's where we want it to be.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What are some of your favorite things to create? Like, do you have a fondness for rivers or mountains?
Fondness for rivers.
Like creating the path
really,
of the river, is that the...
It's kind of weird. I really like the erosion. I like the fact that, I can work with these tools and get the channeling width and the soil drag and sediment, or the rock hardness, and just tweaking with all these tools until I get something that looks like, again, like what I would see if I was flying over the desert.
Sure.
And, that's what I'm looking for. I want you guys to really feel like you can believe that this, huge mesh is actually a believable place. If I've done that, then I've done my job. And
right.
So I want this train to look real, feel like it's a real place, has a sense of place. That's always my goal. So I just, this kind of little stuff. I like that erosion and the fact that I can mask rock onto it as well. Oh, that's something I could talk about too, is the textures here.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go into that.
Yeah, I'll just keep moving here.
And so this is an internal, people are asking a lot of questions about, is this an engine that they can run on, or this is a internal
yeah, this is the FORGELIGHT engine. This
Okay.
is Sony proprietary engine. It started with PlanetSide. It's expanded, new features and technology have been added onto it, and it's our Sony engine. So that's what you guys are looking at.
Cool.
Yep.
And we talked about this last week. YOLO Swagsmith says, where are all the trees?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have a ton of trees in the game, but this editor is still being integrated with the tool that we use to make the trees. So what we're doing there is I take, again, the height field. I always start with that, and I find different ways to channel and mask out that height field with some tools we have, and say, okay, this is the low-lying areas, or this is where there's slope, so I don't want trees on the rocky parts. I don't want them down in the low areas.
Right.
And I make these big masks. I feed those masks into this terrain editor that I was, that we were just looking at, and so it'll find, like, a lot of the trees typically will run in here. This area might be more open, like the tops of the hills. Sometimes they're not. But for the most part, that's kind of how I have it set up. In fact, there might be some leaves in this area. Yeah.
So the terrain does dictate where the trees are?
It does. It's
Okay.
just not displaying them in here right now. It's something that we're going to have here soon. But we're using some third-party technology that putting on top of the our engine, and it's not completely fully integrated. It's in the game, but it's just not in this particular tool.
Sure. And this is a much bigger look from above.
Oh, yeah.
The game looks completely different when you're
You can't do this in the game.
Yeah.
No.
When you're on the ground and you got all the weather effects and things like that. Right now it looks kind of sterile. We talked about that last week. That's just the way you get through the editing process.
Right, and you got to understand too is that you can move a lot faster in the tool when you have certain things turned off.
Right, because it just chugs the program,
exactly.
slows everything down.
Exactly. So we'll turn off things like I can even turn off all objects, and so we're just looking at the terrain itself, just nothing on top of it. And
also the water's an
it's a
object too, because now the water's out of there.
Yeah, the way it is, that actually is something that might change, but those are just kind of some placed objects we have there for now.
Cool.
But that's the reason why I'm getting at with the trees is it would really chug and be hard to work with if you turn on at once. So we'll probably have a little button up here that says don't show trees. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So here's some of Roel's handiwork. Just want to give him a shout out. Oh, also, I promised my son this, that for him and his friends that are already big fans of the game, want to shout out to my son Paul and his friends. Yes, he does have a dad who makes video games. It is true. He's not making up stories at school.
And here it is. We're showing it to
All
you.
right, I'm done.
Hey, Paul. And friends.
So, yeah.
So that's obviously a lot of erosion because you've got that dam right there.
Yeah, and actually this would be maybe interesting to show you. Here's an actual object. So I can pull out. So we'll embellish certain areas where we'd want something with an overhang. That's one thing that a height field doesn't give us. Other developers or fans of games will know that a height field is only going to go up at a steep angle between 2 points. You can't overlap 2 points on a uniform grid.
Right.
That's just the laws of how a height field works, geometry. So we'll come in here and embellish on it and put down some other objects and things like that. And again, this is Roel was able to put down this rock, which I'm actually trying to put back in place. There we go. So yeah,
kind of just sink it in.
Yeah, and we just kind of get it in here, and then by the time we're done, this will have, it has the flora and some other things that will kind of go on. So yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Once you place a big object like that, do you have to then go in and kind of make sure the edges don't do a stark difference in between the object and the terrain itself?
Yeah, we try and really minimize it. It's not 100%. It's there's a certain amount of give that you kind of have to live with, I guess. But we try really hard to really try and taper them together as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely.
That type of thing. I wanted to show. Let's see. I was looking for some of that. Let me come in here. So I wanted just to paint. on here. You know, we were talking about painting with terrain, or painting the actual mesh.
Mm-hmm.
We can actually paint the textures on the ground as well. So I was going to come in here and hopefully this is working right. Strength 5. Let me find somewhere.
Okay.
There's a certain amount that you can put down in one area. Let me see if I got. Why isn't this working?
So for everyone who was here last week, when we designed the L-shape outpost, those pictures are now on our Reddit page. So
cool.
Go check those out. Adam placed the outpost we created last week in the world, and Serenity Falls is also there. So big shout out to everyone who was here last week and helped us create that. It is now part of the game.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, right from here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's turn off all the grass. This is one of our asphalt textures.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Roel made this one, and we could do some really nifty things. You know, I just put down this ugly glob. Normally, we don't paint like that. We'll come in and use some smooth, ways of painting on top, and we have concept of blend maps. So you can see that I can come over here and actually blend these two together, and it's really this is one of the fun things I like to do as well. So I can just fade it out and fade it in. So sometimes we'll just kind of come in here with a little area where we want to hand touch something, and we do a fair amount of I guess we'd call some handcrafting, but we do a broad brush approach first, and then in certain areas where there's a point of interest or whatever, we'll do this.
Right.
But we don't do this everywhere.
All right. If you guys have any questions related specifically to environmental art and level design and things like that, feel free to put them into chat, and I will kick them over to John here. Good questions so far, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks. And I also wanted to show you this next. Well, keep on going there.
Oh, I was just saying, if you guys haven't already hit that follow button and you're enjoying what you see, go ahead and give it a click. It just lets you know when we're doing our streams. We're going to have a pretty regular stream for a while. We've got our work in progress, and that is every Tuesday from 5:30 to either 6:30 or 7, depending on the day. But yeah, come hang out with us and hit that follow button, and it'll let you know when we're streaming.
Yeah, more good stuff and new things coming.
Definitely.
So this is the asphalt worn. I just want to show you kind of the origins of where it came from and how we get it. So we put it into our system once we make it here in Photoshop. And it's a lot of sampling and things like that, but it's the same. It's the map that you just saw me painting with.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it'd be kind of a nice start here. Let me turn that off. Okay, so that's the actual color texture. We use several different layers of textures to create one look on our terrain. We use a color diffuse channel, as some people know it, and then there's a specular, or that's the shininess of a channel, the smoothing,
Right.
As well. And then the normal map, which is how the light is hitting that texture, gives it a little bit of a bumpy look, so to speak. And we put all those together, and then along with that we'll put a mask. And the way I was able to mask and blend the dirt with the asphalt is by using this part of the texture. And this just says where it's white, you're going to be blended last, and where it's dark, you'll let the paint or the texture being painted come on to it first.
So pretty similar to that topographical.
Yeah.
The white would appear to be a little bit raised.
Yeah, it's a little weird kind of sublime thing, but you have to think of it that way, where sort of like a height field.
Right.
You're absolutely right, where this darkness is where the dirt came in first and these little chunks stayed last, kind of what we'd want asphalt to do. So, we have that kind of capability that's really fun. And then here's, let's see here. The specular map isn't a whole lot different, but we have this shiny, the little flecks are a little shinier than the rest, and then the low-lying areas are dark. And then last, this looks pretty familiar to most game devs. That's a normal map, and red and green are two different directions, and blue is kind of I guess kind of central. It's not necessarily one of the ones used, but the red and green is what tells the light vector coming in which way to light the map and create this ridge. So this part might be shiny in the morning, and this part will be shiny in the afternoon, and this part will be shaded, and it actually adjusts that way. So it's really neat tech. It's
And with weather effects, when those come into play, like,
oh yeah,
it makes it
those
even
actually
shinier.
affect the specular and do some cool things with this map. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we got a question that we kind of touched on earlier, but a lot of people are coming in and out. So this is Rushing Instinct says, are some of the lands generated or handmade, or if it's generated, do you touch it up a little bit? And leave it as it is?
So yeah, we do both. We generate. We use some semi-procedural stuff on a huge macro level. We try to do and go as far as we can with that because it's efficient. You can cover a lot of ground, but ultimately we go in and we'll handcraft and place small little points of interest, or make a little mountain where there's something really significant, or a focal point where we want to have players go. So
Okay.
that's
Here's another question that's getting asked a lot. The Rockheart says, will there be any Easter eggs or homages to other zombie IPs, movies, books, games, etc.?
yeah, maybe.
Maybe. The perfect answer. Maybe.
Maybe, yes.
We'll all see when we get in there together.
We're fans of a lot of zombie stuff too. Oh man, we've been talking about all sorts of old movies, Dawn of the Dead, Romero movies, and all the way up through Walking Dead, and just talking and looking at everything. We really want to nail this. We're fans of a lot of other games with zombies and stuff, that are out there now, but we want to give it our all. So
cool. All right, let's see. Grab some more questions.
yeah, let me grab some other stuff to look at here.
All right. All right, guys, we got about 15 more minutes, so if you want to get any more questions in, I'm going to try and grab as many as I can that are related to what we're talking about today, environmental design. So those are the ones we'll be answering today.
So here I have some pine trees that I was actually working on. I was trying to angle the fronds a little differently and experimenting with those, so I thought I'd share those with you.
There's those trees you were asking for earlier.
Yeah, there's the trees. I know that on the stream you've seen some of the other stuff. Maybe the older pine trees, they had this weird kind of cross hatching, so I got rid of that. So I thought, well, if someone really looked at the trees, they'll go, oh wow, that's new. So whatever. The other thing we haven't really talked about that I was going to show you is how I make the grass. We call that system radial flora. And reasoning behind that term is that it's a ring of generated grass, flora, flowers around you as you traverse the world, and so that ring or that radius is where we get the name radial flora. And we'll come up with some
And this
imagery.
is a pretty massive ring, right?
Yeah.
Massive might not be the best word, but large.
It's large, yeah. It's definitely not
large enough that you can't see the borders of the ring and be like.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Is
Okay.
we're trying to make that very hazy and fuzzy. It's a juggle between performance and quality that we're trying to do.
Sure.
The some of the things we've done to approach that is vary how much work we've done. One of our programmers, Tim, who's just awesome, he was able to put in some functionality for me so I can get different rings of different kinds of flora, so that they don't all abruptly stop right here and you're just seeing this lawnmower effect.
Right.
That's what we don't want you to have.
Exactly.
So those kind of things are how we solve that problem.
Okay.
So I'll have an image like this, and then I will bring that into Maya, which is the application we use, and create these very simple pieces of geometry. And they have to be very simple because you're seeing a ton of them at once. And my job is juggling this game of triangles. How much is on the screen at once? How many shader calls are being created, and managing those numbers so it's not too much, doesn't slow down frame rate,
Right.
that kind of thing. So I have to be careful. I can't just throw geometry in that's every single grass blade, one curling this way, one that way.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't quite work that way, and want to make sure it runs on everybody's machine.
Right.
So we that's how we make them, and this is that texture kind of brought in. Well, I don't know if you can see both at once, but you get the idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Let's see. Swamp Fox 356. Do you ever work with biologists or science advisors to ensure that the proper wildlife and environmental elements are in place that would make sense in the real world? It's like your research process.
Yeah, I was going to say we do a lot of research. I read a lot about some of the areas that we wanted to model after.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I was reading a lot about the Northwest and some areas that we kind of wanted to model after. Then we kind of shifted our focus into some other places and kind of did a little bit of a blend of both. But I looked at what kind of plants were in those areas, what kind of plants grew in the grasslands, what kind of ferns, or maybe there weren't ferns under the trees, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I guess you could call that consulting. Went to web pages written by some biologists or
Right.
some botanists, and actually, I read several botany, websites. So that's pretty much how I'd answer.
Okay. Let's see.
Let's see what else I have too.
All right.
Showed that. Oh, I guess I have another eco I could show here. Some leaves.
Daily with Bailey. Question: is there different types of trees, such as thicknesses, size, color, height, or is it the pine tree that we see, but there's just different heights?
Yeah. So we do some scaling. We can't have 10 different kinds of pine trees and 10 different kinds of deciduous trees, of course. So we do a little bit of scaling to get a little bit of height and field, height adjustment.
Mm-hmm. So there's variety enough.
Yeah, because you definitely see that. But I'll do some other little tricks where I have some samplings of some of the deciduous trees.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like there's some undergrowth, some new ones growing, but they're not scaled down versions of the main tree.
Oh, okay.
But we do some, a lot of the scaling on there. But they're in a lot of cases we use the same tree and do different things with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just part of the juggle we play.
Okay.
Can't throw endless amounts of things at the game, or else it'll take your computer down.
Right. Okay, let's see.
I was gonna show you. Here's the map I have for the leaves under the trees,
Mm-hmm.
and then this is what I'm using to kind of do the blend map. This one's kind of subtle, but
All right, I think we're back. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little bit of a hiccup. It was not the zombie apocalypse starting up right now, but I like your enthusiasm in the chat. All right,
thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out, you guys. We've got about 5 or 6 more minutes, and then we'll call it a day for H1Z1 work in progress. But yeah, so where were we?
Yeah, so this
dropped?
isn't a picture of some nebula or whatever. So what I was explaining is this is one of the masks I make from the height field, and I pull out areas where there's channels and draws, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these lighter areas are where there's soft patches of dirt, and they'll blend in with the grass a little bit. But overall, this is, one of the masks, one of the many ones I make. Here's kind of a crevice where there was a road and things like that. But I end up making these world-size masks to lay down some of the ecosystems, so I'm not hand painting every single place where there's going to be dirt.
Yeah.
Now we'll end up going into one of these little places and paint on the terrain in the editor, and it affects this mask. But we start with something at least, so that we're hitting the whole world.
Yeah. All right. Here's a good question. Kenjinkin 1, will there be places where the nature took over abandoned buildings, or I guess
There's a little of that.
Yeah.
Based on our time frame, there is some period of where there's a little bit of overgrowth and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go totally crazy with that, and like I said, it's we have some of it.
Right.
I think that's just
it matches the time
what
frame
it
of the
is.
story that's trying to be told.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's nothing's, there's not a whole town full of ivy or anything like that.
Night Sovereign, will there be noticeable wildlife areas, such as places where wolves and deer would be seen? Or do they just roam everywhere? Because it's a
Yeah, for now,
the zombie
I know
apocalypse.
there's some really cool AI that we have
Mm-hmm.
that is in place, and they have some specific places and things like that. But there's a lot of roaming that goes on. That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've heard talked about.
Yeah. No, it's always funny when you see a string of zombies chasing after a deer running away.
Yeah,
into
that's the
distance.
awesome part of our game is you'll come in and you're like, oh, the zombies. Oh, they went after the deer.
Yeah, no, I've used wolves before. Like they're chasing me, then I'll run the wolf into the zombies, and the zombies will start attacking the wolf, and
training them.
it's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Cool stuff.
All right, we'll grab one or two more questions, and then we'll call it for today.
All right. I'll come back to the train editor here.
All right, let's see. Okay, here's one. Kestrus, question, having such a large map being used, how does the engine deal with this? Is the terrain a single large plane, or is it constructed using multiple planes spliced together, utilizing LOD to load only when needed?
Yeah. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about there.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of games, we have a large height field that's presented, but in our game engine, it is broken up and brought in segments and in chunks as you go through. It's kind of like a large grid, but there's subsections, and the game manages that as you go through. And we do have a terrain LOD, so I think that answers most of that.
Okay, here's a H1Z1 Survivor. Will the ground in the woods be just a flat texture, or will there be little things like small rocks, holes, etc.?
Yeah, that's something I was actually still gonna get in the game yet. Is so we have some, there's leaves and there's dirt and there's things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, you'll see some ferns, some grass that's not as plentiful as on the grasslands, but it's undergrowth, so under the trees, it's a little more of a leaf ground cover.
Right.
So I have that kind of thing. There's rocks in a lot of areas. Sometimes they don't quite get in under the trees as much as, they're just the way we have to kind of stack things in there. There's not a lot under the trees, but we do have little pebbles and stuff.
Okay. And let's see if we could probably end on this one.
Okay.
Ugo Boom Boom asks, will the art look the same for the most part, even if individual players scale down their graphics? For example, if I turn down my settings to low, will a bush look a lot different than someone who has their graphics on high? Will this change the cover and give certain advantages to low graphics settings?
No, let's see, the best way to answer that is when you're up close, you're getting as much density as someone else is seeing up close. The things that we reduce for people with a lower graphics card and things like that are more of surface effects or things of that, but we never rip out geo right in front of your face and someone else gets to see all of it, and and there's this hide and seek, or you're vulnerable. That wouldn't be fair, of course.
Right.
So yeah, it's more of effects and sky things. I'm trying to think of the other things that we reduce. Just off the top of my head, I'm not coming up with them, but that's the main answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you,
All right.
everyone, for hanging out with
Thanks,
us.
everybody.
Once again, my name's Greg Henniger, Community Manager. You can follow me at Greg Henniger. Our Twitter handle is at H1Z1Game. Please follow that. There'll be a lot of announcements, and you can, find out all the new stuff that's coming up by following that as well. So thanks a lot, John. And
All right, you're welcome. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
good luck on the rest of the game.
Yeah, looking
All
forward to
right.
getting it out to you guys.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.